Hey, keep going, Jeff.
Here we go.
Jeff would be more of a hip hop guy.
Ready, set,
I
go.
can't stop that. Yeah.
Coming to you live, it's the Auto Hub Show with Ian and Jeff. Here we go.
Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? I was at Larry Coleman's seminar. So happy I came, having such a good time. Thank you so much, Larry.
One of the best traders in this area for sure. I don't know about anywhere else, but as far as I know, he's the best. So, told you, take advantage. Thank you for having me.
I'm at Larry Feldman's seminar, and what I've found is that what he's really good at doing with his knowledge and with his training, he's not filling a bucket, he's lighting a fire.
Ways to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is, the longer it takes, the more money you spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon and then the time to line are the most important things to be looking at. I'm Mike Burrell. I'm Service Director at JM Lexus.
All righty, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let me just switch this up real quick. Here we go. All right, so we like always to start with a few books. Let me just get this to come up. Come on. Oh, let me get it right. Having trouble with Acrobat today. Okay. 1 second, got a technical problem there. So good morning. Always something.
The beauties of live shows.
Yeah. Why is it not?
You're doing a great job. Yeah,
I try. Anyway, Jeff, let's go into it while I go ahead and figure that out. So first of all, let's start with the disclaimer.
Well, as always, the Auto Hub Show guests have their own opinions, and that's why we have them here. And those opinions may not necessarily be that of Ian and Nethercott or Jeff Polo and the Auto Hub Show. And of course, we call this the Larry Feldman disclaimer. It is behind me and available on the website for you to check it out.
So I got a couple books here. I'm just going to slide this over. Like I See It, The Future of Automotive Retail and Ludicrous. And if you haven't already checked out our videos from NAIDA, they are live, all live now on our site. Anyway, go ahead, Jeff.
Well, we have a new guest here, and actually we're going to call this the Eric Foster Show this week. Eric is the founder of DealerVantage and something with a really cool name. They're just Whoop Group, so we're Whoop Group or Whoop. So Eric, please introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about yourself and your company, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And Eric Foster, co-founder of DealerVantage. We are a first-party data platform specifically focused on auto retail. About me, my background's in the insurance industry. I focused a lot on first-party data in the insurance. I worked for the largest reinsurance company in the world, not the same type of reinsurance most dealerships are used to. I ran an innovation group where we use first-party data to better market insurance. And now we're in the auto retail space.
Fantastic. So the first question that we have is, we're in the car business. And as we talked before when you joined us, car people think they are all that in a bag of chips. Do you know who I am? And what I said to you earlier, I am the general manager that joined the biggest Toyota dealer in the country, and we're still there. So I'm great. So, but most of them don't really understand what first party data really is, data, whatever. What the heck is that?
So it's a made-up term to make people like me feel smart. It's basically just any customer data that they give to you. It can be as simple as name, email, phone number that you're going to submit when you're, scheduled to go visit a car or service your vehicle. It can be more in depth to income, education level, marital status, other vehicles in the household. But long, short story short, it's basically any data directly from the customer that they give to a business as part of a transaction.
Perfect. Okay, that's really simple. I was waiting for things like, of course, my favorite word,
Algorithms.
Terrific, Ian. Let's go.
Well, I mean, we talked a little bit this morning about data, and the video, if you didn't catch it this morning, was about data in commercial fleets, and I'm sure that's also true in rental car fleets and that kind of thing. But I did actually have the opportunity to work with a dealership in Oregon that had developed their own piece to actually, in addition to reminding customers, to also give them real data on that customer's car as they're driving it around. How do we do this as a dealer? And is it as easy as it sounds, or is it more complicated?
So I think when I think about like leveraging first-party data, I think the first and most important thing is everyone's already doing it today, right? Maybe we use different terms, right? So if you think of like the traditional killer sales consultant way, right? Someone comes in, you're selling them a car, you're not just like hammering with a sale, you're talking to them, you're getting to know a little bit about them. You're finding out why they're there, what they like, what they're looking for, what they dislike, what they got at home, all that type of stuff, right?
Right.
And you're doing that because one, you're a real human, right? You're going to want to better understand that customer. But then also, so after that sale closes, if you're a great, sales consultant, you're going to be able to communicate with them afterwards and say, hey, did your wife like the heated seats? Did your kids like the sunroof? Did it tow your boat like you were hoping it would tow your boat? And then you could do like the cheesy stuff that makes you remember them and sending them the birthday card. That is like, makes them laugh. Why did my dealer send me a birthday card? But they remembered, right? You're building some rapport with that customer. So you're getting to know them a little bit better. So I think the first and most important part is like first party data. Everyone's been using it already, right? I think the big difference now is that, businesses aren't relying on a sales consultant having a Rolodex on their desk where they're going to communicate back with that customer, right? Now it lives in all of these systems. It's going to be in a CRM or a DMS or an auto scheduler, right? So when we think about leveraging it, it's really just understanding what matters and then communicating to a customer in a personalized way. Understanding something about them so that you can have a targeted message that makes sense to them for who they are and the conversation you've had with them.
Interesting. Jeff, can you make sense of that, or do you have questions?
Okay. So can I get more gross out of this? Just kidding. I'm sorry.
Would that be a dealer response?
Yeah, that's the whole point. Prior to you logging in, Peter, we were chatting with Eric, and we were talking about the virtual. In the old days, I mean, old guys, us, over 30, we had the closets, the real closets. Some people came out of them, different story, but we had the closets with all the stuff covered in dust and all the conversation with virtual closets. And I was mentioning it in IADA, somebody mentioned about these virtual closets. And that is typical the dealer thing. The dealer response is, what does it do for me, and can it do it for me without doing anything? And we had a good chat, a little chuckle like with Eric about that earlier. So yeah, it's a typical dealer response. And actually I have to say, in many cases it's, well, yeah, my salespeople aren't using it, make them use it, or whatever. We did have a question here from Joe. He said, you said what's significant in the dealer-customer relationship? what metrics do you use to determine what information is significant? That was the tongue twister, Joe.
Hey, that is.
That's why I typed it.
So I guess it's really about like what your relationship with that customer is and what you want it to be. So I'm going to give very specific examples, both for like, data platforms like us, and then specifically for what we do with DealerVantage, right? So let's think of like a data platform, like a basic data mining company, right? So they're going to look at vehicles you previously sold. They're going to put together an offer. It's going to be super, personalized. It's going to give them real numbers, et cetera, right? That's a really basic use case of, you have this car, you're paying this much on it, we can get you into a new one with like the same or equivalent price. Really simple stuff. So some of the things that we do that we find interesting is we look at the household level. So like Joe, I can say, hey Joe, you bought this car with us. We see you got the same make that you didn't buy from us. If you service both of them in our place, we'll get you a 10% discount. So a lot of what our business is about is mostly focused on service conquest opportunities. We see about 40% of the customers we have another make that dealership did not sell them in the household. So it's really easy just to tag this into a service campaign and say, hey, service everything you have with us. It's cheaper for it. And plus we already have a relationship with you. So it's really tying that like, all right, we know this about you. We understand these other vehicles in the household. Come back to us so we can build that relationship as we go.
Interesting. Yeah, well, it's a very good point. You know what? We're attaching a very high-tech term to things that we used to do way back.
Could not agree more. That's exactly what this is. It's a new term for everything we've always done before. It's just not in paper format, so it gets a fancy name now.
Yeah, well, and it's very true. And people like you have businesses that exist because in the old days you couldn't couldn't show up a dealer paper vantage. It would require too many big things. And Ian shared in the chat there a thing which says, and IBM said that computers cannot be held accountable, therefore they can't make management decisions. Okay, Joe, I'm sorry. Joe put full props to Eric for not calling math and data AI. Way to go. So true.
Yeah.
Can I joke on that for like half a second? I think like I joke with our team internally, like we should just brand AI and we'll be worth like 4 times as much. And then we just retrench and go back from it a few months from now.
Well, I think that's a good point because I think we have to change this name because that's very anti-AI and we don't realize how much of it is. And I was impressed that Joe typed the other question in and spell check didn't change what was it, just a second here, was it significant? Significant to scrumptious. So we're kind of leaning toward this, Eric, but data schmata, I put this in the call. Data schmata, what good is it if we don't use it?
None, right? Like nothing's good if you don't use it. I don't think there's anything that is inherently good unless it has some utilitarian value, unless you do something with it, right? So like I'm not coming in telling you I have this novel data that's perfect. If you don't use it, it's worth nothing, right? I think what's valuable, like to kind of get like you're riffing off of like, how is this going to increase my growth? It's like, all right, what does it actually do? So in our case, like same example I gave before, you service more vehicles. We know if you're servicing a customer's vehicle, they are much more likely to buy their next car from, right? So you're really keeping or retaining that customer as well as you're increasing your fixed ops revenue. So the value of data is nothing unless you can do something.
Yeah.
But I think
you're increasing your fixed ops revenue, but you're also essentially you're building your knowledge base about what consumers have based on the insurance data. If somebody has a Mustang Mach-E or whatever it is that's the new hot car that you can, or a Ford Maverick is my favorite. You can buy it for 20 grand, turn around and flip it for 35, right? You're building your virtual used car inventory because you're now aware of customers that you have a relationship with and the other vehicles in their household that you can start communicating to them about, like, hey, I know you have a Volvo XC90. Those are always really good trade-ins. You mentioned that your kids, again, what data is significant? You mentioned your kids were going away to college. Do you still need a 7-passenger SUV anymore? I can give you a sweet deal on that and get you into something else. So it is fixed ops, and I think that's a very smart play. but there's a used car component to this. There's an inventory building component to this that is less critical now than it probably was 6 months ago. But I'm sure the dealers who had this 6 months ago had a much easier time navigating the lack of inventory than dealers who did not. And then I don't work for Eric, so this isn't supposed to be a commercial. So you tell me if that's right or wrong.
Yeah, 100%. That's definitely one of the uses that we really like to push with dealerships is like, one of the things I've learned when getting into auto retail is how micro a dealership's customer base really is. Meaning they know what sells really good in their area. They are masters at that. So when we can go in and say, look, you can see every one of those, you sell GMC Acadias really well in this space. Let me tell you how many GMC Acadias are within your customer base that you didn't sell. So you can literally go in and see that. So if you need to acquire that used inventory, you know you can make a good amount on it, go outreach to them. Tell them, hey, I'd really like to buy that GMC Acadia you have. It's selling hot. We can get you into this new vehicle, et cetera, right? So I think you can do like micro decisions by understanding both your own business as well as your customer. But then what I kind of geek out, and I'm a data nerd, right, is you can see the business as a whole. So like if I'm a Ford dealership, it's interesting to see, okay, why are Hondas the number 2, right? So why do I have like an F-150 and a Honda Civic? What is the weird customer group that I have that I'm seeing that is the second most popular vehicle? That's stuff that I just find interesting.
Peter, you had a question.
Yeah, well, it's a question and a statement. It's basically, I couldn't agree more with this subject matter. I started a company 14 years ago that was specifically driven by data to help people market their businesses and create sales teams. So data to me is the new currency, and until the dealers actually recognize that data is what's going to drive them forward more than anything else, this is almost a moot point, and it should not. It should be as what was the movie Radiohead, where they said turn it to 11, and that's why Tesla has 11 on its volume scale.
Spinal Tap.
As a tribute to it. We need to action data. We need to cleanse data. We need to input data properly. That is going to be the new realm of this business that is going to take us from transactional back to relationship. Larry and I speak of relationship selling all day long because that's what we're looking for. One person said to me back when I was selling Range Rovers, how much do you make on a Range Rover? I told him it was a 4-figure amount. But I said, when I take that over a 4-year ownership and the commission I get, I make about $1.20 a day selling you this car. I need lots of customers to maintain that relationship to pay my income. So it's an annuity-based business, and the only way I was successful was maintaining my data points from, as was mentioned earlier, a Rolodex, which became a CRM, which became everything else that we use today, calendars, this, that, you name it. We need to manage it properly and move forward with it.
And the great news is this is a Range Rover, so there's lots of service.
Yeah, exactly. I put this question in for one reason. And actually, Joe, you will appreciate this. You spent time, I know you're a fixed ops guy, kind of, and you're also a kind of sort of former still whatever bike guy. And do you know how much trouble I had in my bike store to get service advisors to walk out and look at somebody's bike when they brought it in for service? This is bikes. This isn't Honda Civic. I don't care if you got a Honda CB50 mini bike. You walk up, oh, hey man, let's look at your bike. That's cool. By the way, how can we get somebody to do something most people in cars don't understand to use it? Like data, they understand the bike. They understand it's a one-cylinder. They don't understand data. They certainly don't understand algorithms. And I think we just got a new favorite word in, annuity.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge with data, and it's not so much just data, I think there's a fear of it. And it was actually kind of funny because it's part of my MBA. One of my electives was a gentleman who's a dual citizen. He's done a lot with data for big companies like government, insurance companies, banks. And his issue with data and more importantly, predictive analytics that are now sort of everyone's calling AI, but I guess that might be part of it. Depending on who you talk to, his issue wasn't the data. His biggest issue was how clean the data was. But more importantly, I think a basic understanding or lack of understanding of the importance of that data. If you had data and you could actually predict things more accurately than you do now, and it actually made your life easier and more profitable, people would probably get it. But in a lot of cases, there's this fear. And I was actually watching a video today, ironically, on YouTube with two investors out of San Francisco talking about the next billion-dollar data company, AI-based. And it was interesting. They were talking a lot about fear, and more importantly, fear in Silicon Valley of what is this going to mean to my life? And I think a lot of that is part of this discussion. When you look at fear in general with technology and auto people aren't necessarily technology people, even though they are. But people in general are going, do I need something else in my life that I don't understand? So I think that's part of it. But also, things are pretty good right now to ask the next question. Dealers have trouble having enough technicians to service cars, having enough cars to sell, having enough, the cars customers want. Even buying used cars is a problem. So do they really need more data, I guess is the question. And can they handle it is the other question. So maybe, Eric, you can give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I consider myself like an amateur botanist. I really like gardening and planting and all that stuff, right? And there's a saying from that space, right? So the best time to plant a fruit tree is 10 years ago.
Yep.
Second best time now, right? So sow the seeds, right? I like to give like an analogy from past life experience that I find really, really meaningful. And I also like to talk through with dealerships. So back in the day, I worked a lot with mortgage companies, and we embedded insurance into a mortgage. It was relatively straightforward because when you got to buy a home, you got to get a mortgage. Mortgage company says, show me your insurance or I'm not giving you a mortgage, right? We would say to them, hey, you do this now, you help us sell the insurance, we'll make money new and renewal every year, it'll add up. And at the time, if everyone's like follows the home industry, it goes up and down, right? It's like super hot, then it's super cold. It was really hot at the time. And they're like, oh, we're making a ton of money. It's not worth it. It's not worth doing anything. Don't mess with this right now. We're going to wait until we have more time. We're too busy. And then about 3 years later, it started to cool off. And a lot of the mortgage companies came back to us and like, hey, can we still make a whole lot of money from that insurance thing you told us about? And we're like, yeah, you could if you started 4 years ago. It's all about starting and building that now, because yes, times are fantastic right now. I don't know when it won't be, but I do know at some point it will not be. So the more you can do now to proactively fortify your business, the better you'll be for when the bad times come. And then the second thing I just want to tie into that is it's not hard to start. Like Jeff, you mentioned like how do they actually get them to use it? Our goal, and then admittedly, that is a hard thing to say in the correct words to make it actionable. And what we've really focused on is understanding what matters and then putting it in really simple terms. Hey, are you having a problem filling your service lanes right now? If the answer is yes, we say, what are your monthly service campaigns? Can we add this data to it? It's going to be all your other customers. And we are proactively either handing that to them, working with their BDC, giving it to their agency, or frankly, doing it ourselves on their behalf, right? So it's really, do you want more servicing business? If the answer is no, hey, are you having a hard time selling used vehicles? Do you need more used vehicles? If the answer to that is yes, what type are you looking for? Hey, here's how many are in your customer base that we can help you market to. And then it's the same thing. Does a BDC do it? Is there an inventory manager? Is it your marketing company? Or do you want us to do it? So really simplifying those very small things. But the most important thing is getting started. Because at one point, you'll need those things to really kick back up for when times get hard. And if you don't start now, you're going to be, trying to pick up steam at the same time everyone else is.
Eric, I've got to cut you off there because things are never going to get hard again. Things are never going to stop being good. Come on.
I've got a little blue pill that'll help you with that, Jeff.
Exactly. Hey, I don't need that to drive my business. you know, it's funny. It's becoming a repeating thing because we've been talking for, gosh, Ian, what, 18 months, Peter, talking about the Great Reset. And in January, February, you know, a bit to March, we did have a reset. And all of a sudden, all we're hearing from everywhere is it's back to Nutsville again. But I do have to tell you, you made a good point, because I'm sure there's dealers sitting there with two-wheel drive F-150s in the northern states or Canada that aren't selling. There's some with regular cabs that don't sell anywhere. There's you know, manual transmission millennial anti-theft device Civics. And what a great thing to do is to sell some of this stuff now, because you're getting too many people that can't get nothing.
Well, it was funny, Jeff. I was watching this other video this morning. It was a father and son duo, and the father's been in the car business 4 years, and the son's a data guy. And they were going through Cox Automotive data, specifically around what's the best car to buy and how can you get a best deal. And they were talking about days in inventory, by manufacturer, by time of year, used car pricing, all this data. And the thing that was really interesting was, it's like, okay, so you want to motivate a Chrysler store to sell you a Chrysler for less. It's pretty straightforward. Here's how long you've had it in stock. Here's what it costs you a month. And here's what it was last year. And it was really interesting because it was really about, okay, what motivates that dealer to say, I'm out. I wanted this car gone. Like, I'll blow it out. Versus last year, it was like, well, if you're not paying me 10 grand over invoice, or over retail, I'm not going to do it. And it was interesting because by manufacturer, that range was quite significant. But when you look at Chrysler as a brand, it was something like over 90 days of inventory available now. And that was kind of interesting because, to your point about Chrysler, not only do you have a lot of cars in stock now, do you have the right cars? I don't know. But the dealer that doesn't understand that, but more importantly, isn't looking at that, is probably not managing their business very well. So it's very interesting to see that strictly from a data son point of view and a car guy and father point of view, advising you know, dealers and also customers. But the thing that was really fascinating was the fact that used cars are harder to find now than they were last year in terms of buying them. So that was kind of interesting. Anyway, go ahead, Jeff.
Interesting though, one thing I firmly believe probably the best dealers at handling the ebb and flow of the business are Chrysler dealers or Stellantis or whatever you call them.
Stellantis.
Yeah, because they've always been a little bit of like Oliver in the kid in Oliver.
Can I have some more?
Because they've always been given tons and tons of stuff. And even during the slowdown, there was all sorts of classic Ram. And they were still building those, and people were buying them, and they were spending $95,000 on a 15-year-old truck. But I just laugh at it because as much as we like to beat up on them, they've done it well. And tell me, do you deal with many in the Stellantis world, Eric?
We do. Admittedly, we're kind of like, we're spread. We get into luxury, we get into Stellantis, we see a little bit of everything. So the answer is yes, but not like disproportionately so.
Yeah, okay. And funny enough, we mentioned that because Stellantis now covers everything. It's phenomenal, but I saw a YouTube video yesterday of somebody comparing the new Dodge Hornet with the new Alfa Romeo Tonale.
Wow.
And it's the same car.
Really?
It is the same. We always got that idea, but they didn't even, unlike VW, which takes their Tiguan and their Skoda, whatever it is, and the Macan and the Q5, and differentiates them, you know, except the car people. This thing's almost the same. But what are the risks? What are we risking here right now with all this data?
So we do an enormous amount of work to fully de-risk this. Again, we get this directly from customers. This is information that they're providing voluntarily. As long as you're doing the right thing, which from our perspective, we are absolutely tied up, there's not really a risk associated with it outside of, is it creating confusion within my business, right? And that's to go back to the point of like, what does it actually do for me? Does it just get boxed up and dusty in a closet somewhere, right? And that's what we really want to avoid, and we work quite hard to make sure that it doesn't. So the only risk is it's just being wasted. Are we doing work for absolutely nothing? Yeah.
Well, this might be the first show that about 40 minutes into the show, Larry Feldman has not said anything. But I'm gonna ask Larry because Larry, you know, we know that you work with dealers every single day, probably too many days. You know, what are you seeing when you go into stores on data handling? Because, you know, Eric's stuff is really good stuff. It's obvious it's really good stuff. But what are you seeing in the world of handling data, how people handle data?
Well, Eric went a couple interesting directions. Two quotes I would throw in for him is Confucius, that the hardest part of the journey is the first step as far as jumping in with data, and that the best time to fix your roof is when the sun is shining. What's happening with the industry now is you still have a lot of guys walking around with their chest pumped up. Yeah, I'm rocking. What they don't, not was talking about, but nice try, Jeff. But what the interesting concept here is, it's not so much the dealer and the product, it's that with interest rates being what they are and payments and people's real income shrinking as opposed to what they're bringing in with inflation, I think you're going to see a lot of repossessions and a lot of people where the industry takes a jolt, not from our end, but from their end. Eric, you and I, and you seem like a really cool guy, so I don't want to paint you as a complete nerd, but we're completely opposite. You seem like a sophisticated tech guy, and I have a rotary dial on my iPhone. I'll show you my sundial on my app. My whole thing is people and making them laugh and making them like me and getting that word of mouth. Now, obviously, I don't care how good you are, you can't generate the same word of mouth referral, which is how I made all my money continue to, like you can with the internet, where all of a sudden 9 million people see you. But I think more than ever, we're going to have to teach people with the data how to be human, how to tie it. Having the data is beyond perfect, right? If you don't know, man, you're eating the wrong food, you die. You got a peanut allergy, you go, you know, and that. But the point is, the data is everything. What products do we need? What sells in our market? Where is there a void, right? The old thing, if you have 8 inquiries on a car and you sell it, immediately look for that car again so you can plug it in because you've got 6 or 7 ready people. What's falling by the wayside, and it has nothing to do with fine people like you, is we've just lost the ability and the willingness to communicate. People don't know how to answer the phone. They don't know how to hold a conversation. They don't make people smile. So it's just going to be one other challenge. I'm not shilling for my own show here, Jeff. I have a podcast called Lethal Sales, where I basically, it's the greatest demonstration of being human on earth, because I basically torture people for an hour, and then they call me afterwards and says, that was really fun. Can you come to my house and torture me some more? I can't, of course, I have a waiting list. But what I said was, people are freaking out about AI because you can indicate all kinds of inaccurate information. Welcome to the world. If somebody wrote a book 200 years ago about somebody who's been dead a long time and they paint him as a hero, people think they're a hero. If they paint him as a villain, they think they're a villain. I'm a conservative. If I talk to a liberal, they'll tell me, like, you know, I should have horns in a tail. So it's really the same thing as the life's always been. What is your interpretation? How deeply do you look into something and say, well, they say it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So if we can find a way to incorporate your data, which sounds awesome, with people with personalities. All right, one last thing and I'll shut up, which is painful for me to do. I just had a big training class in Virginia. And I asked the question I asked every damn class. What do you say to the guy that says, when you walk up to him, hey, don't start your sales pitch. I only have 10 minutes. I got to go watch my son play ball. And the answer is always, I can do it in 10 minutes. And I always make Jeff laugh when I say, only if you're a hooker at a casino. You're not consummating a card deal in 10 minutes. The answer is, what does your son play? Well, here's the deal. Now I am commercializing. So the reason I'm better than all the other trainers in the world, he said humbly, is they teach you to memorize a bunch of nonsense you're never going to use. I teach people to think. So if we can say, here's the data you need to get the product and to get the people in to sell the product, then all we have to do is marry it with making people less than robots or leaning on the tech so much that they become, you know, insubstantial. That's my thought, Eric.
Well, Larry, you got some endorsement here from Brian Motes from LinkedIn. He says the
Brian Motes is a lonely guy.
You said the second most important part. Go
I
ahead.
even heard off camera, he complimented Joe's shirt. And by the way, Eric, I like to tell people I'm the world's greatest salesman. I'm not. Whoever sold Joe that shirt is the world's greatest salesman. I'm consigned to the number 2. I haven't picked on you, well, Joe. I don't want you to feel neglected.
Yeah, so
Feel
Larry,
the
I
love,
actually
baby.
I think Larry's spot on. I think if you can't marry data with a real.
Oh, hold on. So the data guy once again concedes that the Tasmanian devil is correct. It's just a viewpoint for unfocused ADD people everywhere. Make sure you bow into my telephone.
I would say it is not, neither are mutually exclusive, right? I don't think one thing is the perfect solution. And if someone's selling you like this is the perfect thing, no matter where it is, like come on, you're getting sold something then. I think if you can mold those two together, having a great data with an incredible personalized experience and a human element, that's what everyone wants. That's what makes sense. Like that's what, I don't know about you guys, maybe I'm speaking for myself. That's what I would prefer.
Yeah.
I want to feel good about what I'm getting.
Absolutely.
What we like is, hold on one second, Peter. What we like is contrast. We like a movie about a tough guy that like shows a tender side. But right now it's become a cliche and everybody's so vulgar. But remember the first time you saw a movie where grandma cursed? And it was funny because it went against the grain. So again, I think we're in lockstep. The tech stuff has to be perfect, but if the personality isn't there, it sucks. Eric, we've all been there. It's Friday night or Thursday night. You sit down to eat dinner and somebody calls you and they start pitching you and you feel a little sorry because maybe they're trying to make a living. So you say, could you perhaps call me later? And they just keep on reading off the script and that's when you hang up. I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't mean to interrupt. Notice Eric, Peter is wearing a black shirt because he's afraid of my wrath because of the last shirt he wore.
Well, when you
Buddy,
say,
I'm already shopping for crazier shirts. The fact that I've got your attention
Excuse me.
means I'm under your
Excuse
skin.
me. Good luck finding a crazier shirt than that. That looks like the wallpaper from Liberace's bathroom. Okay? Maybe Eric can help you with that.
Liberace's bathroom, and it's fabulous.
Larry,
Right about now, Jeff's sorry he asked me to speak up.
Larry,
But hang on, the old timers that are on this call, if you've ever been to SEMA and you ever went to the Keystone party that was at Liberace's mansion, you're still hung over from that shit. It was in 1997. So like, yeah, I've been there. It was amazing.
Go ahead, Peter.
I just want to note that we went from a brilliant data analysis to talking about Liberace's bathroom. I strike again.
challenge accepted on the shirt, Larry. I got way wilder ones than Joe's, so it's coming on. Going back to data or data, depending on what side of the border you're on, it's so paramount that we marry everything together. Like you look, that data is going to build trust for us if we use it properly. And people buy off of people they trust and like. Like some people do like Larry. I like Larry. It's a challenge, but it's I don't know if it's a DEI thing or not, but we're there for Larry. But people buy off people they trust and they like. With data, we can use that to allow us to understand people better. We can use it to understand what these individuals are all like. Larry uses a topic about sending people out to ask to buy a car about their daughter or their sister who's having a baby. How many people ask the daughter what the daughter's name is? Do they know if it's a boy or girl? All this information that they can input into their system that they can follow up and say, hey, did Susie have her baby yet? Did they actually name it Stan? Did they do this? Did they do that? We can use that. There was a system used years ago called the McKay 66. And it was 66 questions you ask the customer, and you would know everything about them moving forward to maintain a relationship. That
Peter, it's about understanding yourself. You know, one of the best piece of advice you ever get in your life is the last boring thing they say on an airplane, which is that if the air mask comes down and you're with your child, put it over your face. Because if you can't help yourself, you can't help anybody else.
Exactly.
If we don't understand ourselves, if we don't empathize, we're useless. And by the way, if we're talking about data, my buddy John from Philly was talking about cheesesteaks. I hate to say this because I'm a Philadelphian born and bred. The best cheesesteak is not in Philadelphia. It's in Atlantic City, New Jersey, at a place called the White House. The guy fought in World War II. He came back from the war. He started it. You can go there any day of the week, including 4th of July, God bless America, and there's a line around the block. The bread, the meat, the sauce, beyond belief. You guys are ever on town, I'll take you all, except Eric, he'll get lost because the dad is bad on stuff.
I've been to the White House. Get out of here.
There you, I knew there was a reason I liked you, even though Jeff and Ian said you were a bit of a nerd. Thank God I was here to defend you. It's been a bit.
Wow.
Well, having said that, I would have to
Liberace, I love it.
that the best cheesesteaks are in Jersey.
Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the cheesecake of the show.
Cheesesteaks, not cheesecake.
So let's get back and focus a little bit here. Can you do data, Eric, that actually tells you what an existing customer, what they did, how would I put this? To service, actually seeing if they purchased things like ProPack in the business office, extended warranties, without them having to actually pull up the file.
So I can walk through exactly what we do, right?
Okay.
So when we get insurance-based data, we are pulling very straightforward stuff. And then we're supplementing that with all the third-party based warranty data. So the long story short is, yes, we're presenting everything that's associated with it that can be on public record based off of that bit. Now, is it perfect? No. But is it really damn good? Yeah.
Okay, so you can get an idea of people. Can you then get a generalized data of people in your area that have extended warranties, which are insurance?
We do not. We really focus on the individual level. So if it's someone like we really do your customer basis household. So if it's someone that you sold a vehicle to, we're going to see everything else that's in the household, and we're going to tell you about those vehicles based off of where, legally retrieve.
Okay, no, that's good. These are things that, if I got the question, most car dealers will have that question. It's, we all want something that wants to do everything for us without us having to do anything. I've always said that car salespeople, and frankly, everybody in variable ops is a car salesperson, are inherently lazy. Especially now, somebody walks in, what, Ian?
That's a pretty bold statement.
Well, Larry, am I wrong?
You're not wrong, although I hate to say anything that would be deemed controversial.
That's how you made your money on lazy people. No, just kidding. So
Wait a minute, Jeff, you asked me a question. Let me be serious for a second. He really is, if you think about it, he really is right. And this is going to be even more offensive, but it's less than lazy and it's more being stupid. Because my thing is, if you want to go on unemployment, go on unemployment. I just don't understand the people that go to work for 8 hours and don't try to make money. I love the idea of looking at your watch or your iPhone or your computer and saying, wow, I can't believe it's time to go home. Look at how the day flew by. And the only way that happens is trying to keep yourself busy. Or if you're in stores, the thing that kills people is boredom.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on. They get in their own head. But if you're constantly leveraging data, if you're constantly leveraging your base, the people in Virginia, Ohio, certain places you can't do a bird dog. But in states where you can send somebody $100 if they send you a customer who buys, how can you ever be slow? I've seen rich people drive their Bentleys across parts of Florida to save 3 cents on a gallon of gas. Everybody wants that. So yeah, it's even worse than lazy, Jeff. It's stupid. So yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Larry, I'll just add one thing to that. the people for bird dogs for $100. I'm in a facility right now that I just did their acquisition costs on their internet leads. They're at $217 a lead.
Well, Peter, it costs around $400 to get somebody to walk into a store.
Yeah.
And I always say, you want to sell more cars, act like that 400's coming out of your pocket. Because if salespeople had to put a cash deposit down before they talk to somebody, nobody in this whole country would get groomed.
Nope. Nail them to the floor. That's what would happen at that point.
Well, you know what? It's very funny when you, it goes back to basics. If you get that down to the dealer level, up to the dealer level, how much it costs, they start to understand. Right?
Well,
you know, Eric, the data that they get from you, you present them a cost analysis, obviously. And it's no point getting into that because it's different for everybody. When somebody sees it costing $217 to get a lead, and then they look up in their KPIs, and they take a look and they see that they're only about 25% of leads are even contacted. Wow.
Yeah, you got Joe on this show and Peter, and I bust their chops, but they're two of the sharpest number guys, Eric, you'll ever meet. Get them drunk one night. Let them tell you what it costs dealers, what doesn't show up on the state. The money they missed, the deals they missed, and the deals they made off the deals they made. The idiot dealers that don't feature tires or make it easy to come in for an oil change, the people go somewhere else, they never come back, and they lose all that business. You said earlier an annuity. I wrote a book and then I had a line I love. They're not annuitances, they're annuities. These people don't live in a cave. They got friends, family everywhere. And if they're working for you and they're a show for you, you cannot lose. It's not only what you're making and what it's costing you, it's what did you make and what do you miss? Because that becomes a habit and people just continue to get sloppier and sloppier.
Yeah. The other thing I just want to build on what Larry's saying is, especially in the car business, but I think it's true of all life, but I think especially in the car business, because we are so insular, we do like to talk to one another and kind of vibe with one another. We all understand each other. We tell ourselves the same myths over and over again. If it doesn't work for one dealer and he says, well, that doesn't work and it's something you've never tried, well, you're not going to try it because it doesn't work. Eric, I know you're new to the show, but nothing drives these guys nuts worse than if I say, how come you're not trying to build your accessory and clothing business in your dealerships? They all look at me like I'm insane. They say, no, that only works with motorcycles. It's got nothing to do with cars. And then I walk into Galpin Ford and they've got 2,500 square feet of Bronco and Mustang clothing and accessories. They've got 4 full-time employees doing nothing but selling t-shirts and hats. But hey, it doesn't work. What do I know?
Oh, 100%. When you look at
number one Ford dealer.
Yeah, when you look at
That's exactly why they're the number one Ford
exactly.
dealer.
I mean, all you have to do is realize that maybe Harley's the high bar there, but 40% of their revenue is from gear, and it's a seasonal business for the most part. So why would you not be taking advantage of that number, especially if you don't have if you have a big showroom you got to support, and you have customers who are in service or sales, when they're walking around waiting for the salesman or whatever, why aren't they able to buy stuff? I mean, there was a show.
But think of the follow-up. A guy comes in, he buys a new Mustang, and you say, hey, man, here's your new Mustang. Thanks for doing this. Here's your new, hometown Ford Mustang cap. Here's your hometown Ford Mustang T-shirt. That guy's going to wear that to every car show, every Cars and Coffee he takes his new Mustang to. He's going to take that everywhere. He's going to say, oh, this is cool. If you have one in kid size, I'll get one for my kid. There's no question. Anyway, but yeah, on other shows, people like to beat me up over that line of thinking. But
I used to always buy every customer that I sold a car to something from parts, not just because it made sense, but because it introduced them to the parts department. And the parts department needed a lot of help. They weren't real good at selling stuff. Like, they need a lot of help. Like, where is the parts department, by the way?
Ian, if I don't want to depress anybody on the show, but if I told you how many dealerships I visit where it's not mandatory to do a service walk when you're showing a car, it's just crazy. It's just so short-sighted, and not realizing that we need them to regenerate the business back up to us and throughout the business.
So, guys, I want to refocus this back on Eric there, because he is the guest of the show. The poor guy's going, wow, holy cow, look at these guys go. Before I ask him something, but I'm going to say this. Here's an example, Joe, of how poorly we do. Is you'll get a BMW dealer across the street from an outlet mall, and the Puma store in the outlet mall sells more BMW shoes than the BMW dealer does. And they're probably more money. So, Eric, how can we fix things? Because one thing we tend to talk about, especially with some of the more positive people we have on here, is we talk about the rabbit hole we go down to in the business right now. Because even in my opinion, there's lots of stuff we do right, but we're really not doing a lot right at the moment. How can first-party data fix us?
So I don't know if first party data is going to fix us or fix you. Here's what I would say. Whenever I, as my organization, or we try to tackle something or provide really good customer service, the first thing I always tell our company is imagine the best experience you have with a company, whether that's Amazon, Apple, or whoever, right? Why was it so good? Think about what we're doing right now. What can we do to be that good of a consumer experience, to be that meaningful, to be something that we really enjoy? And then if you're not driving towards that every single day, what do you do? Like, so I'm gonna riff off of like very specific example in my life. And I'm gonna try to converge in thinking, tie some threads here together, right? I drive a Saab, which I love my Saab. I go to a Saab.
With the key in the center. Yeah.
I sold Saabs. People thought they were Subarus.
I love my 9.3, right? So I get it serviced still at an old Saab dealership, right? They can't sell anything anymore. One, in there, they have lots of merchandise, and I 100% have bought my Saab t-shirt from there because I think it's cool, right? But they understand that they have a customer base of people that are still having Saabs, right? And they value that. And they absolutely send us communication all the time, just focusing on the fact that we have a Saab, because it is a niche consumer, right? It's a very specific thing. So they try to buy my Saab all the time because they have that real close-knit community. You go in, I get it serviced. Every time there's a servicing, he's like, hey, I'll buy it for you for 4 times this amount. Because they are cultivating based off of their data sets, all the people that they've serviced, what vehicles they have. And he says, I have a huge waiting list of people who want to come in and buy their Saabs. Because they're constantly communicating with them and building a brand experience along the way. This guy's awesome. And their whole business is old school, but they really know how to leverage their niche customer base of Saab owners, because that is something that they have that no one else has, right? I think the same thing can happen with dealerships if you really focus on it. There are really well-known brands that people love. And like, frankly, I find myself, like, I'm not even that much of a car guy, but I really like my Saab. And it's just something you attach and identify with. You can be leaning into that more and really engaging the customer on something that they literally use every single day. And if it's a good car, they love. So why are we not treating that experience of them buying something that they love and servicing something they care about? And if you understand who that customer is, what they're buying, where they're going, etc., it's another way to engage with an asset that they really do care about. Because Americans love cars. We do. We love what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you something. I think you just hit the nail on the head. I firmly believe that there are people out there in our business, in dealerships, in dealerships that can't get cars, in Toyota dealerships cultivating electric buyers and saying, let me get you this base Corolla until we get to this or whatever, that when things do change, they're going to be at the forefront on it because they're saying there's something better here than just telling people no. So that's a very good thing. We're almost out of time, Ian. Any final comments or?
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I mean, there's a dealership near my current residence that just focuses on used Porsches, for example. they built a business since 1980 on that premise, and they've been very successful at it because they focus on that very small niche. And it's kind of funny you bring up Saab, because I worked with a lady years ago who was a Saab owner, and the mechanic in the building used to fix it for it occasionally. And he's like, these guys have some really creative engineering ideas that don't make any sense. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a former Saturn store in Langley that services those things. But yeah, I mean, you look at even old Volvo, same kind of thing, right? You get people that are very much fanboys on those things. But yeah, it was a great show. I appreciate all the input from everybody, and thanks for bringing the data in an interesting point of view. And any other final comments from anybody?
I love Joe Sherritt.
Yeah, I think Joe's is pretty good, you know. Well, we're gonna have to, when we went to NIADA, I was out looking for Hawaiian shirts for our shirts to logoize, and unfortunately, most of the shirts I couldn't use because they were all polyester, but there were some wild ones. But if you got them on screen, the screen wouldn't stop moving. So, Eric, I thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had a good experience. We certainly learned a hell of a lot. And thank you very much for taking the time. Thanks, Josh, for reaching out. And Ian will have this thing done to send out to you so you can share. And please like us on YouTube and everywhere else. And Ian, I'll leave it to you to shut down before Eric has a final comment.
Thanks very much for everything. It was great to hear about data and how important it is. And Eric, any final thoughts?
No, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate everybody. This was a blast. I appreciate it.
Rock and roll. Have a great week. Here we go.
Oh la la. What?
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.